Welcome to Terra Juno Painting Stuff. In this video, we are going to be looking at some of my previous plein air adventures on Gabriola Island. If you've never heard of plein air painting, it means in open air in French, and all it means is painting outdoors. And plein air painting is a fun but challenging way to paint because you are trying to capture changing light and scenery. It's very rewarding though, and it's almost always a really great experience. Gabriola Island is one of the Gulf Islands just off of Vancouver Island to the east of Nanaimo. It's a great spot because it's very accessible as far as the Gulf Islands go. It's only about a 20-minute ferry ride from Nanaimo, and it's beautiful. There are so many amazing sandstone rock formations, so many parks and beaches, and there are so many things on this island to paint. Each beach on this island looks a little bit different. And there are so many different terrains to choose from. The paintings in this video are a compilation of 3 different visits to Gabriola over the course of 3 years. I actually recorded my first video here on Gabriola Island, and you will get to see how terrible it is. Unfortunately, a lot of the video that I had got deleted. I was able to get together some bits and pieces that managed to survive and put together a little bit of footage for you. On the north end of the island, there is a park called Gabriola Sands Provincial Park. It's locally known as Twin Beaches because there's a peninsula with 2 beaches that are very similar on each side. I painted a little scene of Taylor Bay. This painting is quite abstract. I was really struck by the color of the water. There were so many different subtle shades of green. Just across the bay and around the corner, on the DeCourcy Peninsula, is a little water access. There is a beautiful beach with some really interesting rock formations. There is a sandstone overhang on this beach, and I just loved the look of it with this twisty piece of arbutus driftwood in the foreground. And I'm using oil paint in all of these paintings, and it can be a bit challenging to work in oil on location because it dries so slowly. You really have to take care of your painting when you're coming back from location because you can mark it up, or it usually ends up with some bugs on it, maybe some sand, but that's part of the experience of plein air painting. Just down the road from this site was the DeCourcy Drive Park. This is the start of a painting. I painted this after the other little painting of Taylor Bay. It was getting really dark, so I had to pack it up. I had to walk back through a dark wooded area, and there are no street lights around here, so I didn't want to stay too late. I went back to this location another day, but the tide was completely different, so I couldn't finish it off. My next location here is Pilot Bay, and this is the other side of Twin Beaches. I think this might have been the second time that I ever painted boats. I started by using my viewfinder to get the major compositional elements, and then proceeded with washes of color. Then I laid in the clouds and mountains. I wanted to keep the foreground a bit washy looking in areas. I added a little ferry in there because the owner had an association with ferries. And this painting is quite small, it's 10 by 10 inches. Now to the south end of the island. Somehow, magically, my footage of this painting didn't get deleted. It's pretty rough though. This was only the second time I'd ever filmed myself painting. And the weather situation was a little bit rough, as you'll see. This is just the outside of Drumbag Park, and as you might be able to tell, it is raining so hard. So I'm actually under a tree, under an umbrella, and I'm going to try to make this work. I'm determined to paint today. Really, really determined. So let's make this happen. I'm just off to a start. I gave it a wash. Basically just using the grime that was on my palette. This is my start. It's just a bunch of lines. I used a viewfinder to help me out. I do take these things around with me. They just help me focus in on a scene. That way I can narrow in on something. It helps me sort of find a general place of where things are gonna go. And you can make ones that are like grids, that if you want to really make sure you've got things in the right place, if you care. That's up to you. I'm not super invested in that when I'm plein air painting. I'm using the scene just as a reference. Here I really like all the greens in the water and the way the waves are coming in at an angle and just the juxtaposition, that's a fancy word, of all of the driftwood. And my main factor for deciding this place is I'm under a tree and I'm somewhat protected from the rain. So we'll just make do with this. It's actually gotten even worse. It is almost a solid sheet of rain coming down, but let's talk about the palette. This is the same palette that I was working with yesterday. I have not cleaned it. I don't really do that. I'm going to be working with a few less colors because I forgot them in the car and I'm not going back to the car right now, maybe later. We've got titanium white, Naples yellow, this is cadmium lemon, this is I think it's light cadmium yellow. This is a medium cadmium yellow. It's dry though. Cadmium orange, medium cadmium red, quinacridone purple, alizarin crimson. This is just some sort of pink mixture. This is the very last of my burnt sienna, and that's the one that is currently in the car. So if this lets up, I might go and get it, because I do work with that quite a bit. Transparent iron oxide, ultramarine blue, Prussian blue, viridian, ivory black. I added some tauric gray because I found some of that. This is a transparent yellow oxide of some type. Ezo green. This is yellow ochre, just another gray mix, and then my blue mixes. I've talked about those in another video. Yeah, so let's see what we can do here. It's gonna be fun. Lots of fun. And now it's sunny. Yeah, I've kind of been working away here and just sort of rolling with whatever the weather's doing. It really is in a messy phase, and that's okay. Hopefully I can get it out of this. We'll see. The weather seems to be getting quite nice. That's positive. So I'm not going to get chased out of here by like a hurricane or anything. As you can see, it is gorgeous. And I'm going to run to the car and get my burnt sienna, because I am missing that. Here's my little setup. I got my burnt sienna, and I'm actually going to take a little break and use the ladies' room. This turned out to be a beautiful day. I've just been working away here.
I finally got to use Viridian, so I'm pretty happy. Yeah, scene has changed quite a bit. Right now I'm adding a lot more light to my work. I've also made my umbrella into a sunshade. I'm happy to report. I'm gonna call this one done for now. The wind's starting to blow. It was quite a challenge. I mean, the weather earlier on definitely made it difficult, but I really like the scene now. It's very bright. The water is a beautiful emerald green. I tried to get a little bit of that back in there from the sort of dark swampy colors from earlier. But here it is.
And also on the south end of the island, just one inlet over from Logan Bay, is Drumbag Park. Most of the footage got deleted, unfortunately, but a few clips survived. I was really interested in trying to capture the undulating sandstone rocks. The color palette of this scene was very subtle. There wasn't a wide range of color and tone variation in this scene. I used a lot of badger hair brushes to get in textured strokes to represent the rocks. The tide ended up coming up nearly to our feet, so it was time to pack up. But it was so quiet and peaceful, and I just loved the sound of the birds and the lapping waves. Now back to the north end of the island, to Malacipina Galleries. Malacipina Galleries is a natural sandstone wave formation and is probably the main tourist attraction on the island. We lucked out because the weather was so terrible that no one else was there. I liked it because it made a natural rain shelter. We did have to be aware of the tide coming in though, because it does get covered in water. This was the first time I'd ever filmed myself painting, so the footage is pretty awful. Malacipina Galleries was a very difficult landscape to paint because of all the undulating rocks and textures, compacted by a very narrow color and value range. I started using darker colored washes of oil paint that were warmer than the color that I intended the final color to be. I would usually work into this darker colored wash with lighter, cooler colors, but we had to pack up and leave before the tide came in.
I'm just switching hands now to cut into the painting. I sometimes do that because I find it's easier for my right hand to go in a certain direction than my left hand. I am left-handed, so if you are also left-handed, you'll know that you probably use your right hand a lot because everything is meant for a right-hander. Learn to use your right hand for stuff. Getting a little further along here. Now you're probably looking at the scene thinking, that doesn't go there. Quite okay. Sometimes you just need to lead the eye in a certain direction, so you just make marks that feel right, and you're using the scene as a reference. I'm trying to lead the eye in and just get the impression of the movement of this place. It feels like a giant wave, and it's a little bit unsettling because you wonder if it's gonna break while you're under it. Titanium white. Here we have Naples yellow, lemon yellow, light cadmium yellow. This is actually, I think it's dry, but that's medium cadmium yellow, cadmium orange, medium cadmium red. This is quinacridone purple. I probably didn't say that right. Alizarin crimson. These two I'm not really using today, but I don't know, that's some sort of pink mix. burnt sienna, transparent iron oxide, ultramarine blue, Prussian blue, Viridian, which I absolutely love, and it's not really a place for it in this scene. Ivory black, some sort of transparent yellow oxide, azo green, yellow ochre. This is a mix of like yellow ochre and black and a little bit of burnt sienna. This is just a gray mix that I have, and this is a blue mix that I made. It's just Prussian blue mixed with some white, and this one a little bit of ultramarine blue with alizarin crimson, just a touch, and some titanium white. Makes a nice touch when you don't want to go all the way white, because you want to push something back. It really takes the yellow out.
Here's a picture of the painting at the point that it was when we had to leave the location. I decided to work it up in my studio at home. Hi, welcome to my studio. I am going to finish off this painting in-house. I would love to go back to the scene, but I don't live on Gabriola Island, unfortunately. So I'm just gonna finish this painting here from my memory. I'm not gonna use photos or anything like that. I feel like when I use a photo, I get a little bit too trapped in details and I lose some of the freshness of what I enjoy about plein air. And I really get to use my imagination this way and really create a scene that is like a love child between the place and my mind. I'd like to increase the light a little bit here and also darken it in the background and maybe make this line a little bit less solid. Maybe in here, make this a bit more dramatic. And that's our plan for this session. I wasn't super happy with the results, but it was an interesting exercise. Here are the two versions side by side. There are things I like about both of them. I prefer the brushwork and composition of the unworked version on location, but the color in the studio version is probably truer to the actual scene, since it's the second layer of paint. I didn't have time on location to get a second pass of paint done. It's usually in the second pass of paint where I incorporate cooler, lighter tones and deepen the shadows, plus add more detail. Gabriola Island has 1,000 more scenes that I would love to paint, and I will definitely be going back. I hope you enjoyed watching my plein air adventures on Gabriola Island, and I hope you get a chance to get out there and paint something beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me.